Okay, so all my film crew gave up. Seeing I've had my daughter, my older daughter, my little daughter, me, my husband gave up, and I want to close this out and finish today. I've been doing this all day, and I know the lighting sucks and it's terrible in the background. My room is like still messed up from the flood. Years ago, the water came in from upstairs because one of the pipes burst and came in, and we had to rip up the carpets and move over the bookshelf and things like that. And because our plan was to build and move, we just didn't fix it because we needed new carpet anyways when we moved out. So it's half my house as I just can't wait till we move so that I can get rid of everything. All right, so we are going to, I sent you guys videos on math, on reading, on, let's see, I didn't do the writing, but I'm going to kind of break everything down now into individual people. So I talked to you in the very beginning about we do not want to waste our time with busy work, okay? So if you have one kid, oh my gosh, your life is so easy. And not that it's easy because we're probably doing something at the same time. I'm going to tell you things that I like, okay, starting with a younger age. So I'm going to pull some of their school. And I want you to remember something, though. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are the most important things. You might not agree with me with some things, but because you might think, oh, they need this amount of work, or they need this kind of, they need this science at this age, and they need to do this busy work, because it's not busy work. They learn it. I promise you, I don't have this much time to convince you on everything. You just need to trust me. I barely went through any type of science textbook with my oldest one. And he is brilliant in science. He's in microbiology and physics and other than playing around with stuff when he was younger. I mean, in the very beginning, I started him in all the science books. And then I was realizing how much he was picking up and how bored he was. And then I read a book about, from these two scientists, they were parents that homeschool their kids. And they were like, do not do any science textbooks until, and some people will totally disagree, do not do any science textbooks until they get to the algebra level, because science is math. And science should be, so these are the things that I like when they're younger and they're not at algebra yet. And it doesn't mean, I do have a daughter, well, she's just in algebra now, but last year I put her in a science class. And you can do it at home, not that you have to put them in a science class, but I put her in a homeschool science class. It was once a week, and they give them a week worth of homework, and it's a lot of busy work. And don't tell her this, but it was because she was complaining about the stuff I was giving her. So that's what's great too about Texas and a lot of other places. There's co-op groups. I don't like to do co-op groups. I like to do co-op groups for fun, but not for school. Although they're going to be learning, I don't make it my core subject of depending on that. I do it for fun, for social, for things they like, but I don't have them do a bunch of busy work with it. So, and like I said, my second daughter, she's also very smart in science, even though she thinks she thought she was the one who wasn't very smart in math and science. And she's finishing degree. She's getting her degree in psychology. And like I said, getting A's. She got straight A's at BYU last year, and all her science classes she's taken, she loves. The point is not everyone's going to love science. And the key when they're little is to get them to love science. So what do I like for little kids for science? All right. So when a kid is learning how to read, and it's a great book, I like all the Brain Pops. So you definitely want to get Brain Pop. It only works on iPads or iPhones, but I would suggest the iPads. And if you can't afford one, get a refurbished one. They also have Brain Pop that you can get down on the computer. And I think right now it's free. And so get Brain Pop and have them watch there's 5 million videos. My autistic son memorizes every one of them. He can tell you everything. Okay, so it's just fun. There's how it's made. They can, I have a mini tramp, which I'll talk about, one of my videos I'm sure says something about, not these videos, but my other videos I've made about how good the trampoline is. I'll make another video later to explain that. But I'd have them run on the trampoline or jog or jump while they're watching how it's made. There is, and I'm talking about younger right now. So this book is, you can actually Google. If you Google reading about science and then you put F in, or reading about science A, I want to show you this book, you will see these series of books. Okay, that's the back of it. How many are there? There's also reading about concepts and I'm trying to think of the other one. I let my friend borrow them. So what I would do is, if my kid was little, I would get the reading about science and not the reading the concepts, the new practice reader, A. And so if they couldn't read it all, I would read the story. And each one of these, like Where Bears Turned Green, A Living Dragon talks about the Komodo dragon. Each one of this is information. So when I sit down with them, and I'm sitting down with my son, and I'm going through maybe his sequencing that we talked about, I'm going through his math. I'm not, like I said, 5 problems. The sequencing should maybe take 7 minutes. I'm then going to read one of these. If he's learning how to read, or he's a little bit better at reading, I would read. And the way I would do it is I would read, and these are like $14, you know, so I would go, if you, like I said, I had the post, and I can try to find the link later, but if you just Google that book, the website will come up where you can get these from. And I have all of them. So what I would do is I might read the first paragraph, and then I would tell him to read it. And whatever word he got wrong, I would just tell it to him. I'm not going to make him sound it out, just tell it to him, because it's a visual. And then if they're a little bit older, I'm going to read the whole thing. And then they're going to read the whole thing if they're still getting better at reading, okay? So there's the reading about science, and like I said, the new practice reader A, they would do 1 story each, or you could do 2 stories each. And again, remember, we're just doing school Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so that's how quick. If they were a better reader, all I would do is I wouldn't read it first. I'd have them read it, and whatever word they got wrong, I would just tell them the word. Because they're visually looking at it, and they're hearing you say it. Do not have them sound it out. I promise you, the faster they get these words memorized, they are able to sound out words. They're not really sounding them out. They're putting the sections together that they've seen before, like in school, the SCH, and saying, oh, that's sk, instead of thinking that's such, okay? Once they pass off level A, you go to B, and so on and so forth, until they finish these books. Then use them for the next kid. I love those. I love Explode the Code, okay? So Explode the Code is for little kids. It's kind of like a spelling. It's kind of like, and they go, this says 1.5. And I get this on Amazon. And they're writing, they're sounding out the words. And so if you're worried about them sounding out, they do it in here. I don't have them always do every page, but they're fun. They love them. In fact, my kids will go, this is my favorite thing to do, to go through this. And sometimes kids like busy work, even though this isn't really busy work, but it's fun. But like I said, they'll have a new section where it's all the is, and they have to see the picture and circle it and things like that. So it's the only workbook that I even kind of like. And it will go from 1, and then you don't want to get 2. You get 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3, and all the way up to, I think it goes to 8. And it doesn't do 8.5. All right. So I go through that really quick with them. And like I said, you don't have to do that. With grammar, my older kids, and I am doing little kids right now, but there is Khan Academy grammar that you can do with a little kid, but I'd rather have you not. Now, Khan Academy grammar, literally you set up an account for them, which is you're literally adding a student. So you have an account, and Khan Academy they have all the maths that go in there too. I don't ever suggest that for little kids, and even sometimes, like, let's say you have no time to sit down. You can ultimately have a high school kid practically do all of his school on Khan Academy because it's there. And it's all free, and they literally, you can check. They can't pass it off until they get 80%. There's unit tests. They have history. They have science. They have math. You can tell them to start on a certain level, and they literally, there's a video that they watch, and then there's problems that they give them, and they can't, it's not passed off. Like, it will have like a little section next to it that will say 80% is usually the passed off, you know, and so you can see, and it emails you at the end of the week what your kid did, but you can just go on their Khan Academy and you can see, all right, you've done, you know, because sometimes we don't have time to check up on all our kids if they're older. Like my older daughter, not the one that's in college, but like one of them I'm still going through math with, even though she's in college. And the reason why is because her math class she's not taking until next semester. I want her higher up there. So I'm still making her review. Most kids, when my kids get in college, I'm already done. So, but I really want her to not forget in that short period of time. Sometimes they forget. I've had older kids who finished with me, they got in, they took the math test, they got in, but then they didn't take their math class that they needed to take for their associates or whatever they were doing. And they took it like the last semester. Then they had to go back and review everything. the things that they had maybe forgotten. So the grammar in there, I like it, and I'll have some of my older kids do it. But when they're really little, I get Easy Grammar, just the workbook. And what you're going to do is you're going to do something. So let's say I don't have one with me. I let my friend borrow it. Sorry. I realized I had to make these videos because I can't give everyone all my stuff or I will have nothing left. And so the Easy Grammar is going to go through things like verbs and nouns, but you'll notice there's like 12, examples. And I'll say, think about the math thing again. I'm going to sit next to them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 3 lessons, 3 different things they're teaching, maybe about verb or the 3 little, and they literally give you an example of it. I'm going to do one, and they're going to do one, and then I'm going to do one, meaning different ones, so they get the idea. I'll teach them the next lesson. I do one, they do one, I do one. And then the next lesson, I do one, they do one, I do one. If it's too easy, and again, this is called Easy Grammar. You can get this at the homeschool store. You can look online, and I just get the workbook. Unless you don't understand grammar, even the baby stuff, you can get the teacher's edition that tells you the answers. But it isn't until they're like older. And honestly, when they're older, you can have them do Khan Academy because you can see that they don't know it. Khan Academy, if they don't get a problem, there'll be a little video underneath it, and it will say there's a hint. So if the kid's trying to figure it out and they don't know it, like my 9-year-old say, watch the video then. And after he's watched the video, he can go back and answer the questions right. But sometimes you'll find a kid who figures out a way to cheat. Meaning they'll figure out, if they got them all wrong, there's probably only like 20 different examples. They might go through the whole thing and then memorize the answers, if that makes sense. So you want to always be able to sit down and know what your kids are doing. When they're older, it's a little different. The grammar, sitting down with grammar, I know you would think that that's where they're going to learn it all. That's not actually how they become really good writers. It's not because they know all the grammar rules. So back to the grammar thing with the little kid. I'm going to sit next to them. And if they're really little, that's all I'm going to do. Okay? If they are independent, where they can independently read, I'm still going to go through some with them. And then I'm going to give them some things to do. Like my son, who can now read some things, I am not going through any of this with him at first. I'm going to assign him some things to do, and then I'm going to come in and go over with him what he messed up on. And he's only might have 2 or 3 pages. And then the grammar, I would sit down with him and do those. And then if they're a little bit older, I would maybe give them a couple things to do. The next thing I have is journals. So a composition book, I ended up having to get this because all the stores were closed down. But I like the ones that have this, like the primary one. There's a section where they can draw a picture. So my son ran out of his and he drew a picture. This is my 9-year-old, and my 6-year-old has better handwriting. And it reminds me of my oldest child who, that was the one who did calculus at 12. And I'd always remind him that he had kindergarten handwriting. But if it makes him feel any better, my kids, when they've ever had any extra classes and I've signed things, their teachers have literally said, is your mom a doctor? Because my handwriting, it looks like a doctor's handwriting. It's because I think our brains go too fast and we just don't think. So maybe this means he's smart. Maybe if your kids have really bad handwriting, it means they're very smart or something. And then, who knows what it is. He's also very stubborn. So with journal, when they're little, I'm not having them write a bunch of things because we want to build up their audio and we want to build up their reading. And what I mean by audio is I want them to be able to read at a very high level, and I'm going to be having them listening to books on tape. Tons of books on tape. Books on tape, I just lost my list of stuff that my son does. Books on tape is going to get your child to hearing the commas and hearing the sentence structure and hearing those adjectives that make them really, really good writers. Sorry, I've got to find the paper that had my son's list on it, for younger. Okay. I've got all these things down. I know this is overwhelming because I'm giving you all this, and it's not like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this. You don't have to do this for science. Like I said, I sometimes add too many things. In fact, when I go into the brain about evaluators and NACD, they're always like, you keep adding things. Their school's supposed to be 30 to 45 minutes. And I'm like, well, if they can learn in 45 minutes, what if they did all this in an hour and a half? Or you should see me in the beginning. I'd be doing sign language. I was doing all these different games. Like when I do even the math cards, I love to play games with it, where we'll also take the math flashcards and I'll write 6 times 7 on one thing, and the answers, all the sixes on the ground are one thing, and the answers on the other side of the word. And after they've gone through that, and you can do this with little kids, I'm not doing it as much now as I did with my little kids in the beginning. You can say, on your mark, set, go. I always would make contests and make my kids compete against each other. It's terrible. But I also had points and tickets that they could win and earn for things. So they'd run and get 6 plus 7, and they'd run and look for the answer. And if they brought the wrong answer back, I'd go, no, 6 plus 7 is 42, and I'm timing them too. So they'd have to run back, and they'd have to put 6 plus 7 down and get a new one. But now they remembered it was 42, and they could go get a new one, get it, and then the next time they could go get 6 plus 7. But it was how fast they could pull all those things. I'd also do it with reading words, where I would take like window, chair, couch. This is a kid learning words, door, and I'd have maybe 10 words around the room, and blanket, and then I would flash the words to the kid, and then I would put them all over the room, saying it while I put it, and then I would have them go gather it and say it, if that makes sense. And then I would hand him the words, okay, and these might be brand new words. I would hand him back those same words, and let's say he was a new reader, and he'd had to really quickly go back, and so he's already, that was kind of like his flashing. We flashed him maybe a couple times. I placed him around the room. He picked him up, so that was the second input, but it was fun because he's moving around, so he'd be able to get that in his brain. And then the last time, I would see how fast he could place them. So it was like a race. Go, on your mark, set, go. And he'd have to go around and place them, and you could see him again in his mind thinking and remembering where. And he'd get it, and then I'd go around and check it and be like, you got 5 right. Okay, these are all wrong, and then I would go put them right and do it again and things like that until he got it right. So all those type of things made it more fun. So for a little kid, I don't want you to feel like you've got to do so many things. I mean, you can just do science projects. You don't have to do science projects all the time. I promise you, they're not going to be behind in science because you didn't do like every science thing out there. It's just about them learning stuff. It's about, what do you want to learn about? And so you're doing those things and you're having them research it. When they're younger, having them be more independent and playing than doing a bunch of schoolwork is the most important thing. All right, so I told you about the map before. That's also what I do with the little kids, and I do with the older kids, because until they have it memorized. There is a great Stack the States on iPad. That is, all my kids have all the states memorized because of that. And there's a Stack the Countries, and I'll just have them do that for fun. But I like to play the game individually, so again, I can see what they know and what they don't know. Because like I won't do the states with my one son that I already know he knows all the states. So why am I going to waste my time? So I'll go through 5 new things I teach him about, where I'm just saying this is this, and I always say something like, where does Uncle Chris live in Alaska? Or what country? I'll bring something up. Where's PETA from? Or where? So you're kind of giving a little history. Not that it's from PETA. It's PETA's from there, but I'll say something like that makes them remember it. The same thing as the oceans and the continents and all that kind of stuff. And then what I'll do is with the 5 new each time, I go back and review a couple that I already know they know. And I'll really quickly go, where's this? Or where's that? Or I'll bring siblings in and go, okay, on your mark, set, go, who can find this place? And so it's fun to be competitive. I know we think we don't want that, but it is. I promise it's good. It's healthy. I suggest you to get things like, okay, so spelling. Spelling needs to be not a spelling book. Please don't buy a spelling book. What you need to buy is Spelling Power. It's a huge notebook with like 1 million words in it. And you can start from the beginning, and you can test your kid and figure out and some kids you already know they know how to spell things. And so in this book, I literally have letters and numbers on the top. So I give my kids quarters. You don't have to do quarters. For every word they get right, I give them a quarter. So they need to type their spelling words, because remember, visually they need to see the word in their head. Having them write 500 times how to spell something in bad handwriting, they are never going to memorize the word, because they have to see the word in type, in print. They just do. That's the only way they become really good spellers, and that's why we want them reading more, or very good at spelling. So what I do is I will go through here, and once they get 10 wrong, when they're younger you might have 5 or 7, every time they get it wrong, so I will give them a word if they get it wrong and they're trying to type it. And sometimes I have them sit by me with an iPad where they have like a little notepad, meaning there's an app that has a notepad in there. They'll try to type it, And if they get it wrong, I will tell them how to spell it. They will type it 3 times, okay? And then I write it down on a little card. I have like a little 3x5 card. And on the 3x5 card, it's funny because when I do spelling, I'd write their spelling words that they got wrong. And then on the back, I'd write whatever they haven't finished that they need to do individually. Piano, their Audible book, whatever it is that they're typing. They're listening to the story of the world, which is the history. On the CD, their cursive handwriting, and have little checks. And it's funny because they like these little things that they go around with. Running up and down the stairs 50 times, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 leg lifts on this one thing. I know. And then you can even put like 20 minutes on the trampoline watching how it's made. The thing is that there's history. You're wanting this all to be fun. Do you see how this is like not school? It is school, but it's not school. I mean, my kids, whenever they're like, why do we get a spring break? I'm going, your whole life is a break. I mean, you do school Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then the other days, where we had swimming or piano or we would go on field trips, or they did sports every single day, or they did every sport. My older kids just year-round did everything. And then they have a million things here. You can find co-op groups. You can have, the museum has science classes, because NASA's here. I mean, they have homeschool days for things. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everything that you can possibly think of. Those off days, those Tuesdays and Thursdays, just play. Get them to learn, read. Okay, so the next thing on the list, I know I'm going all over here, get a typing CD, okay? All my ages do typing, even the youngest ones, okay? And what's neat is once they go through spelling, so like I said, once they've gotten 10 wrong, I give them their spelling word, and they have to go type it, okay? And I don't want them typing like this. I want them to type it, okay? And so that's why they're also doing their typing. So if I have any kids that are close, I make them race each other. And when they go to type it, I make them type it 5 to 7 times, even maybe 10 times. So if I have a kid that's younger, I'll maybe give them a 3-word head start. I'm laughing at it because it's funny how competitive my kids are. I mean, I have had them when they have to run up and down the stairs, like it was 40 times before, and then I jumped it to 50. I would make them race each other, or I'd time it. Okay, on your marks, set, go! Run up and down the stairs. And running up and down the stairs used to be a punishment, because what happens is when a lot of times boys, when they have a temper, they need to switch, and it's the fastest way to switch them to logical, especially if they have sensory issues. Having them run, having them do something physical, but especially the running, they can't get upset. They instantly go into logical. So, and when they're teenagers, you have to stick them outside because they'll whine about it. And you have to make them plant trees all over the yard. And when they plant one tree and they do something wrong again, you make them dig up that tree and plant it on the other side of the property. This sounds torturous. I know that. It's not. But they learn how to work really, like my kids can all clean. They can all cook. And they can, like, clean everything. They're gutting the fridges. They can do... but it's something like I said, every day should be chores. Every day should be cooking. Every day should be whatever. They learn so quick, and all of these things matter. Okay, so let's see. What's the next thing? Clock. I'm not doing clock with my older kids. So how do I do a clock? You're like, that's part of like math. Yes, sometimes in the math book they have that, but I already do clock already when they're younger fast. So I have a clock. It's missing somewhere. And, it's one of those that you can turn the hand. So when they're little, I start with, I'm not doing a ton of time on clock. Clock is supposed to be really quick, same as math. Math, it's like, that should take you more than 2 minutes if you add up all the things that you're doing. So my clock, I am making 2 times, and they have to tell me what time it is, and then I'm giving them a time. So I might say 2:30, and they have to make 2:30, and I might write 4:15, and they have to make 4:15, and so that's 4 times. That should take no time, where I actually make it. And so in the very beginning, how do I start this in the beginning? You start it where you're showing them the big hand, and you're just teaching them 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, little hand, that's it. And then you move to 4:30. You're not telling them about all these mean wine. You're not giving them all the information. You're just having them memorize visually. Where it's there, it's 30. When it's there, it's 45. When it's there, it's whatever. And so you're building up to that where they're memorizing that. And then when they are understanding this and grasping this, you're able to go, because they see all little dots. And And you're going to slowly be helping them and once they've had the habit, they already remember this is good 5, and remember they can already count by 5, so they've been doing 5, 10, 15, 20, and we go. And you don't do like the 13 or the 14, you then jump them to every 5. So they go, 5, and you start helping, 5, and you're pointing to them to the point where then you're able to then have them go and do each individual one, and you can put it in the middle. And then you need to get to the point, which I still haven't done this, I keep forgetting, but it's not like people even look at clocks that don't have actual, most of them just have digital. But if you want to, you can even get to the point where there's no, you can even build it up where there's no dots anywhere and there's no numbers anywhere, that they should be able to see. I remember learning this, that just where the one hand was, there wasn't even two hands. Where the one hand was, you could pretty much guess, if that makes any sense. So we know that if it's between 5 and 6, it's 5:30. You're not going to get the exact time, but they can guesstimate. So it was kind of cool. All right, what's the next thing on there? We already know that we're doing the new book, new words, and I always say I have it written down for each one, where they have their brand new book. We already talked about this, and if you didn't watch the reading video, go back and do it, because I don't want you to look at this and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Watch all the videos. I'm sorry, but teaching you 20 years of homeschooling, how many different personalities and how many different kids, it's a kind of a race job. And like I said, you can ask me questions later. I will get to the point when I have more time to make better ones, because I realize this is a need for people to have options and to know that there's options out there. So again, you're going to do one new book, or if the kid is not on books yet, one set of new cards. But like I said, they should really quickly, their new cards should be a made up, unless they're a baby, should be whether you made a made up book or you wrote, Daddy loves Mommy and hates spinach. And you put Daddy loves Mommy and hates and spinach. You flash those words to the card, and then you get them to know, and then at the end they get to read Daddy loves Mommy and hates spinach. I remember making one book, and I just wrote it on a 3x5 card. The book on all the words which was in the book on one card, so we could read it, and then all of the words that went along with it. And I try to make it funny, like Braylee has big puffy hair, or Mommy has a big fat stomach, and out came a baby that was yucky and squishy, or something like that. And then put those words in. Anything that you can make them laugh when they're little. And then you can start, once they get past that, because like I said, he wasn't picking up anything, but as soon as I put names in, it was funny. He right away remembered all the names. So you can see they can read and they can actually memorize it, but it was what the intensity of those words were to them, whether they remembered them. So it wasn't about they needed to be able to sound out. They can get humongous words and see that and go, that's what that word means because of what it means to them. Which is why baby words need to be all the words that they know and we're adding to it. Which is why you also sit down with them and you can be like, you can have all those things where you're trying to get them to recognize stuff and things like that. So I know I didn't go through a ton of baby things. And notice all the physical things I told you we put on the list. It's important for your kid to skip. I know this. So with my younger son, between each thing that I'm doing, you might have a kid that cannot focus for 30 minutes sitting next to you. Every in-between thing that I do, I make him do something physical. Okay, skip across the room. If your kid can't skip, they're mixed. Their sensories are mixed. I know this because my 9-year-old is left-eyed and left-eared, and we're working on him. He's right-handed to get pushed over so that he's right-eyed. And he's the one who has the temper, and he's like ADD boy and things like that, because everything he hears and everything he sees is triggering his subdominant hemisphere. And his subdominant hemisphere is where everything, where you sing, where you move, where you all your creative, all your things that makes you want to do this all the time. And it gives you a big temper because you instantly go to emotional. I half the time keep a left ear plug in. I know I'm looking backwards with you guys, and so it looks right to you, but I keep an ear plug in half the time because even though I'm right-eared and right-handed, it keeps me from triggering my emotional side from the things that I hear. It makes me make sure that I'm using. Some people can be right ear dominant, but they can forever use their phone in their left hand and write with their right, and they switch themselves to left, and they store the information that they're learning and that they're listening to in their subdominant hemisphere, and they have a harder time accessing that. So if you are right-handed, switch your phone to this ear. and switch yourself back over, because it really can mess you up and you might find that you're having a hard time remembering things. If you're left-handed though, you need to be left-eared. So a little thought about that. Let me see what else I have on the list that I am not telling you guys. Sorry. Okay, Duolingo. Don't have them do Duolingo when I'm little. I did have them doing Rosetta Stone, and I bought the homeschool version, and that costs some money. There is a whole bunch of free Spanish things. Even the Baby Can Read thing that I was telling you about that I like comes with a free Spanish video and Spanish things. So you don't have to do that, but it's fun. There's fun things, and it's the language, because my husband speaks Spanish, that I want my kids to learn. And okay, so the next thing, let's see, we did this. We did the globe. We did thumb wars. We did math. We talked about sequencing. Journal. Like I said, in the journal, when they're little, I write it. So I will write on the top line. I'll write the date. I'll write above what they want to say. They copy me. When they start getting to the point where they're learning how to read better, I will literally just have them write it. And literally, this is what I did. And my kids, when they started, my oldest ones, when they started college at 14, they are unbelievable writers. And so it's not about how much they write. Even if you feel like your kid is not, they're not doing as well writing, because you're comparing them because where you think they need to be at this level, because all the kids are writing, but you'll find a lot of those kids become terrible writers when they're older. And they didn't really learn sentence structure properly. They didn't listen to a lot of books on tape. They probably never did. So they didn't hear the words. Their writing it wasn't creative. There's just a whole bunch of things behind it. The thing is, my kids, when they went to their college class, and they, for some reason, look a lot older. My oldest ones do that. Everyone thought they were older than they were. But they were the top kids in their English class. In fact, they actually should have just tested out of it. And we won't go into all of that. But so what I have him doing is I just have him writing in his journal when they're really little, me copying. When they get to the point where they can write it on their own, I have them write it. It doesn't matter if their words, half of them are wrong. They write it, and then I correct it for them, meaning I say this is wrong, and I write right above it the correct answer, and I have them go back and fix it. So what ends up happening is, and remember, they're doing spelling. They will start memorizing those words that they keep getting wrong. And today, they get those down really quick. And then and sometimes I have my kids, so that's all I'm doing when they're little. When they get a little bit older, they're already doing other things that is building up their language. And a lot of times, like I said, you don't think so with the grammar, whether I'm sitting down with them. But the reading and the things that they're doing that are fun, that they don't realize that they're learning from, is really bringing in a lot of the language that allows them when they're older to write really well. You can't go off of how I'm talking at all, because all my words are gone since my concussion. Even though I can read everything, and I'm like one of the fastest readers. I love to read. I have so many books, it's ridiculous. Tells you how important the brain is. Let's see. When they get a little bit older, I do things. So this is the next thing I love. I call them fathead books. This is not something that overnight some of you guys are just going to be like, I cannot buy all this stuff. You don't have to. Remember, if you just do the sequencing, which is totally free, you can make that up. If you do spelling, which, like I said, if you don't get the spelling power, you can literally look up words and just make words and make your own. You can print out first, second, third, fourth, whatever, all the words you can possibly go through there. And I'm not doing every word from, like, some of the words I'm like, I know they know that. I find the word that I know they don't know, and I write that in the spelling book. If that makes any sense. I'm not giving them all of the words. Unless they're very young, and I might go slower at that, but when they get a little bit older and they're going through sections, I'm going through I know they can spell that. I know they can spell that. They can't. I don't think they could spell this one. I give them that word. If they get it wrong, I write a letter by that word telling me they got that wrong. And I write on the top, for my kids, I give them a quarter every time they get it right, but they don't get a quarter right away. When my first kids, I couldn't probably financially do that. I get them tickets, and we'd have these little physical tickets they could have and they could put in, and then we had a booklet that said what would happen if they got this many tickets. And it doesn't have to be financial. It can be you get to stay up late, you get to do this, or you get to whatever. Or sometimes it can be something like you earn this many tickets, and it's just fun for them to have something they're working for. But like, for giving you an example, my autistic son, who never spends any money, he has like 825 quarters. where his little brother has 110, and he's an excellent speller. But he keeps spending his quarters. Can I spend? We're at the store. Can I buy something? So, but it's still fun. You want to teach them how to earn money, pay tithing, do all those kind of things. So I love these books. What I call them fathead because they have big fat heads. These are not fun for little kids. Okay, you might think they are. When I bought them, I realized they got to be like 9 or 10. They can even be 7 or 8 if they are really good readers. They love it. Because the history, by the way, is Brain Pop. When they're little, it's Brain Pop. There's so many things, and they're like 3-minute, 5-minute videos. And like I said, they're free right now. And there's Brain Pop Junior and Brain Pop, but even my baby loves Brain Pop. So you don't even need Brain Pop Junior, although it's free. But what it might, as soon as it's not free, if you don't want to pay a monthly thing for them, they are a monthly fee. It's like $4 a month. And if that's worth it to you, they're paying $8 for both, then it's totally worth it. But my older kids, and I'm talking about that they're like 12. My autistic son is really like a 11-year-old, even though he's not in schooling, but conceptually and where he is and stuff like that, he is behavioral wise. Meaning he's a lot higher in education, but and then like my 9-year-old, my 6-year-old, that kind of stuff. My older kids, we didn't have Brain Pop or didn't know about it at the time. And so, but my autistic son has read, I think I bought in every one of these. Who was Leonardo? Where is Area 51? Where are the Great Pyramids? What was D-Day? He can tell you every single thing about this and what's in Brain Pop. And, and they're fun. And I let my friend borrow a couple of these and said they could rotate through. I know, obviously, I can't make myself a library. And you just get them on Amazon. They're excellent and they're fun, but you don't need them when they're really little. They just Brain Pop. Okay? And then the other thing is the Story of the World. Story of the World CDs, they're worth the investment. They're not that much. They're probably $30 for each level. And you don't obviously need all of them. You start at the first level, and the way the person explains this. So history needs to be, they learn it. It has to be learned like a story. Sorry, I'm moving words all over. And I've been making videos all day. Even if you think only this many came out, I made them like 5 times and restarted. So really, I've made them like 1 million. It's called The Story of the World. And it goes from the beginning of time all the way, to current. Not so current, because obviously they're like probably 20 years old. But the way the person speaks in them is like this very animated. And so they listen. And so half the time what I'm doing is I have them listening to The Story of the World. And they just, they listen to one. So one CD has maybe 10 stories on it. And I'll have them do cursive while they're listening, or their handwriting or whatever it is. And then the next day they listen to the 2 on CD 1 and 3. And so once you've gotten through that whole thing, then you can buy the next set. And I have, obviously there's 4 sets and I have all 4. I promise you they will learn more in The Story of the World. And you're not taking an hour class, and you're not having them do all these tests. You don't need to do them. That doesn't mean that my kids know it. If I gotten, other than math that keeps going and pushing on, most of the classes, even if you went and got an A, a lot of the times you don't remember any of that unless you loved it or you studied it more, or you remember the most intense thing or the intense story or the teacher that was most expressive. Because half the time, if you ask me dates, I'd be like, I don't know, unless I studied it, and it was important. So, like I said, unless you're a historian and that kid wants to be that, you'll find that out because that's something they'll love to do. Okay, so the whole idea is our kids need to have talents. They need to have, They need to have skills. They need to find their joys. They need to do all of these things, and they need time to do it. They need to not do sports at 7 o'clock at night till 9. They need to not have their parent sitting there all Saturday, and you're like, oh my gosh. They need to be able to play sports with their friends after school and not have to do all these things. They need to not be drained the life out of them for school. So I know we're just saying, well, okay, you told me about the little kids. What about the older kids? So, like I said, so what do my older kids do? once they get older, and you're saying like high school level and things like that. So I think we've covered some of the little kids with going up in the levels with math and the reading and the spelling, and the typing and things like that. Their history they enjoy. You can start adding harder books. So with my older kids, like I remember having older kids go, well, I don't know anything about history. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've done history like a million times. But if it wasn't very interesting to them, sometimes they aren't going to remember it. And it's not something that you need to hound. The whole goal that I'm doing for my kids is I'm trying to get them to the point where they know how to learn. And I've been, whether it is me saying, when they come to me and say, how do you do this? And I'm like, well, did you look up how to do it? Did you find it? Expecting an A out of them. There is a lot of classes here. There's a place called Prep. If you go to prepclasses.org, I think, there's extra classes where they literally could take every class there. There's teachers there that teach for 1 day a week. It's not all the classes there, meaning you don't have to take all the classes. You can just take an English class. You can take an art class. You can take a speech class. You can take a debate class. And they go from little grades to older. I usually don't like to do any of that until they're older, and it's usually only one class, and it's an English class. And it's not because I can't teach English, it's because I really liked the teachers there. It wasn't a bunch of busy work. They were writing a paper every week. So the first thing when they're getting to the middle level is the Write Shop. The Write Shop was written by a bunch of homeschool moms, and it literally tells you lessons, and it gives you all of these wonderful words in the back. It's they go through the basic paragraphs of what they need to know, and that's what you would do when you would start when they get through all the levels were. And I know I skipped something, but I also skipped the fact that each day my kids with the fat head that I assigned them, there's 10 chapters in each one of those books, and I'll assign them 3 chapters to read. And then this because I do it Monday 3, Wednesday 3, and Friday I'll have them do 4. And then usually with one of my kids that sometimes I think cheats and doesn't always read all of it, or speed reads it and isn't paying attention, I'll make them write in their journal what they learned about. Or if they're getting to higher levels, I might have them write something about it or give them an idea that I want them to write about. But if they're not grasping the concept, like my autistic son, he writes all the time. He writes in his journal, writes about everything, but he's not grasping some things with conceptual because he's not there yet, because we still, like I said, are rebuilding everything. So I'm still getting him to understand where we put groups together, getting a subject and learning about something, and then writing all the facts down. Just write all the facts you get from it, and then trying to pull those facts and figure out which ones are important and how we could group those into one paragraph and those, or what categories those go into. But like I said, if they're at that point where they can already write a paragraph about what they're, and you're not having to talk with an autistic son, because I'm doing a little bit bigger things with that NACD, the brain company I told you about, has me doing with him, because where he's up here, another sensory is down here that we're still trying to make up for from being a 5-year-old newborn baby who was basically sleepwalking. That's what I had. I had someone who had no language walking around in their, and these guys are amazing how we rebuilt everything. So Audible, you don't have to. What I mean by Audible, you can get the Audible app. You can buy books. When you have a kid who is not an excellent reader or they're not an excellent speller, I always like to, and it doesn't mean they only have to do this. I like to get the book and have them listen to it. And the reason why is, and if you can afford this, the reason why is because I want them to hear the words and see the word that maybe they wouldn't have known that was that word because they hadn't heard it before. It's a new word, okay? But I know, like, I didn't do that in the beginning with my older daughter, and she is an unbelievable writer. And what happened, she would listen to so much books on tape. NACD is big about, like, books on tape, because, and when she started writing, just like my daughter now, in her English class that I ended up putting her in, even though, and it was because she was kind of complaining about the things I was having her do. So I was like, all right, I'll put you in a class earlier. My older daughter didn't complain, and so she was literally, I only put her in one extra English class. It was the first time I ever did an extra class. All the other things, they were just done at home or online or things like that. But I liked the teacher so much that I thought, you know what? I'm going to have her do it. It's not busy work. I like her writing a paper a week. And so the whole idea is us getting them to write. I know there's a lot of teachers right now that are or tutors, or even some teachers that out of work that, even if you're having your kid writing a paper week and things like that, whether that you give them a topic or give them things like that, that you can have someone else check. And if you have a problem with understanding how to correct and correct English papers, you can, like I said, you can be able to contact me, and there's a lot of from co-op groups where people trade to like I just said, I've got friends that are tutors that just emailing them a paper and having them be able to go over it and then getting it back to your child so they can fix it and things like that. There's a lot of things, but what ends up happening is if you think you have a hard time with that, if you go through these programs, you're going to reteach yourself a lot of things. Like even math, if you're like, I can't teach math, I don't remember this. You will. You go through second grade with your child, you'll remember second grade again. Oh yeah, I remember fourth. The first time I did it, when I did calculus with my son, when he was 12, I hadn't done calculus for 14 years. I remember going through and listening to the Dive CDs. Remember what I told you about those Dive CDs, are the ones, DIVE, Dive into Math, that they teach the lesson, and I could also look at the example problems, but I had to reteach myself some of them and be like, oh yeah, I remember. But I had already gone through every level math with him, so by the time I got there, it was like, okay, yeah. And that's what's nice. You're not coming out of nowhere. I know it's hard because you're like, yeah, I'm right now teaching my kid in high school and I don't remember any of this stuff. Khan Academy, then. They can listen to the lesson. They can, whatever they get wrong, they literally can read any problem they get wrong. He has a video underneath it saying, do you need help or a hint? They watch it again, things like that. So, I'm trying to think what else. There's other things that I have my kids, government books, there's government CDs, there's government on Khan Academy. There's a lot of ones that I love. I love the 5,000 Year Leap. It talks about, the leap. There's religious government books that I have too, where it talks about just God's place in helping, our country and other places. There's just different things that you can be able to teach your kids. And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything else. I'm sure I am because it's late at night. But the key is just, I know we talked mostly about the older kids. So the English, the science, like I said, they can take an extra class, but they also have, and I love this too, the Dive has Dive into Science. And he literally teaches the lesson. He teaches the lab. The science CD is, I think, $50 or $60. They have a whole homework assignment. That it's just one page print with the vocabulary words, and then afterwards he teaches them that. And there's a lab, a sheet too that comes with the whole thing, meaning it's just all on CD and it's printable. And so the person can go up there, watch it, and do it and be independent. And they can even check through it, and you can say, if you have a problem, come to me afterwards. And then they have a test at the end. They've even made CLEP CDs where people can, CLEPing is where you CLEP out of a test. It's a test they can take at the end of the year, and they can get college credit for it. So he even has those CDs where they're teaching them, and then he has all these practice CLEP tests once they've gone through those lessons for them to actually take them and practice a test and then go into the college and take a CLEP. My son did that with calculus. He CLEPed out of Calculus 1. And he just reviewed with the Dive CLEP CD, and he had a private tutor also. I remember after he finished, I started having private tutors because I thought, okay, he'll probably be an engineer. I'll have different engineers, different students that are going in for engineers or people who have, been an engineer, tutor him for a little bit to see if he likes any of those things. The point is you have options. You don't have to do all the things that I'm giving you on the list. They're ideas. You might find that the kid wants to do Legos or they want to do robotics. Those other days are just about them getting what do they like to do? What do they want to learn about? What skills do they want to have? And they have all the time in the world to get better at something and not waste their time. How fast can they get done with the busy work? I know I went through a lot, and it seems like this is going to take 500 hours, and it's not. Like I said, I sit down with them. A lot of it when they can read, they already have their list. Like, they have it up on the whiteboard. My kids know. Like I told you about the Simply Smarter when they're older, the sequencing that they already have is called mysimplysmarter.com, and they go do the audio and visual. Then they get on Khan Academy, and they see on the board that says grammar and history. They do that. Then they listen to the history of the CD while they're doing their cursive. Then they type in Duolingo. And I have Fathead written in here, and they go read their 3 chapters. They go to piano, their journal, Audible, and then they wait for me to do spelling and math with them. Or their dad goes through sequencing, Thumb Wars, Globe Clock, and maybe some of their review words. And most of them are done, like I said, then they have their Audible. They might be going and eating lunch while they're doing Audible. And like my autistic son finishes like at 9, sometimes 8:30, and he starts at 7. And then he's just waiting for me to do spelling and math with him. I'll have him go down and make something or whatever. And it's just easier. Sorry, this was very, very long, but obviously you can tell it's a lot of information. When they get to that older age, it's really just, they've got the basics in. The rest of them, they can watch. They don't have to have textbooks for all the other things. They literally can learn. Like I'd go get geography books, but half the stuff they could probably learn from different apps and fun games that they have. I have a million books and textbooks that I went through, and most of the things I noticed that were just busy work. All right. Hopefully that helps you guys. And again, I apologize. This is like a race job, but there's too many people right now that need help, and I'm hoping this will help you guys. All right. Love you guys all. Bye.